Sankirtan movement is a prime benediction of humanity. These transcendental systems are all the transcendental entities. They are not even hard and fast rules for chanting this name. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana
Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare loosen this and put it that way. Go Premanande, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesha Tarine Go Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading the same verse as yesterday, text number 6. We went through part of the purport yesterday. We'll read it again today. It's not a very long purport, but it's like most of these purports in this section there. So many points are being mentioned. First canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, questions by the sages. So this is the beginning of the questions by the sage. In this verse it's an address. They're recognizing the position of Sutta Goswami. The great sages are gathered there in Naimisharanya. Their intention is to perform a yajna, a sacrifice for the welfare of all people, particularly in this age of Kali. They're very concerned, as we heard yesterday. Every devotee, we didn't hear that in this verse, but yesterday at Janananda's Prabhu's house, how a devotee is very, very disturbed to see the suffering condition of others. And that suffering is not due to material lack, it's due to spiritual lack, it's due to their forgetfulness of their identity and their relationship with Krishna. So the sages are wondering, what can we do to try to help the people, particularly in this age, which is Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel, hypocrisy, materialism, where people are generally speaking very lazy about spiritual life, even if they're exposed to it. They're very lazy. We're all tendency, one of the Manda Samanda Matayo Manda Bhagavad Padutaha, one of the characteristics of this age of Kali is people are very lazy, misguided, quarrelsome, and above all, always disturbed. It's just a characteristic of Kali Yuga, lazy. Even one devotee wrote to me yesterday, a very nice devotee, they said that, actually I realize my problem now is laziness. They said they thought that they were getting more time, but then they realized even though they have more time, they're still struggling to finish their rounds because they don't get up in the morning. They're living away from the temple. When you live in the temple, there's a little bit more chance of let's say, impetus to get up in the morning. Maybe devotee or somebody wakes us up or gives us some very kind encouragement to get up in the morning. But living outside, it tends to, we don't get up, and then we don't chant our rounds, and so on and so forth. I'm lazy. This laziness is a tendency for this age of Kali, very common. So the sages are wondering what to do in this age. What is a chance for people? They can't perform great austerities, generally speaking anyway. They can't control their minds to meditate, practically speaking. Minds are so restless in this Kali Yuga. They're always difficult to control, but particularly in this day and age, very restless. And basically speaking, although people may think that we're becoming wealthy, comparatively speaking, we're not at all becoming wealthy. To perform the great yagyas and sacrifices of the previous ages, in Treta Yuga, great sacrifices were performed requiring vast amounts of wealth, vast amounts. So in this age of Kali, what chance is there? So they're wondering what to do. So they approached Lord Brahma for some advice or what they should do. So he said, you should perform a sacrifice, a great sacrifice, in a very special place. So Lord Brahma selected the place. He said, I'm going to throw this, a chakra. He had a chakra. He hurled this chakra into the universe, and he said, wherever it enters the earth, that's where you should go. So he threw his chakra. They followed the chakra. These 88,000 sages followed the chakra all the way to the earth planet, and it landed at this spot in Naimishranya and pierced through the earth and out the other side. Interesting. I don't know where it went out, but it went out somewhere on the other side. And anyway, eventually Durga Devi held back the chakra because it was about to cause some problems. And they decided to perform their sacrifice. So there they are, performing their sacrifice at Naimishranya, which is some of you may have been to Naimishranya. Who has been to Naimishranya? You've been there, sir. Very few devotees. You've been also. Not many devotees have been to Naimishranya. Of course, many devotees, but I mean of ISKCON, not many have been. But it's a very wonderful place, and there's the that place where the chakra Tirtha, where that chakra entered the earth, is a bottomless pit, bottomless lake. It's full of water now. Bottomless, they say. It is right through the center of the earth. Anyway, whatever it is, that's where the chakra landed, and that's where this great, the real sacrifice is now to be performed, not the fire yagya, which they were trying to be performing. It said that they were becoming blackened in face because these activities are not effective in this Kali Yuga. Sometimes we have a fire yagya in the temple, and the whole temple goes black. Not immediately, maybe the ceiling, everything turns black. Sometimes, not usually, but we don't really do it to the full extent. But they were trying to perform fire yagyas. They were also hearing Vedic literatures, and so many mantras were being chanted, and still, the whole essence of the Bhagavatam, and even the next chapters, chapters 4, 5, and 6, dealing with Srila Vyasadev's, having compiled all these scriptures, which we heard some of them yesterday, the Puranas, the Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, etc., and how he's divided the Veda into 4 for the accessibility of people in this Kali Yuga, and so on. Still he was not satisfied until Narada Muni came along and highlighted the cause of his dissatisfaction, that he had not sufficiently glorified the personality of Godhead, whereas describing various aspects of the absolute truth. Of course, within the Vedas, we see so many aspects of the relative truth also, in a sense. Elevation to the heavenly planets, avoidance of sinful reactions, and so on, how to perform prayaschitta. All these are within the realm of the three modes of nature. And they also go up to the point of Brahman realization, and also localized realization of the super soul, how the Lord is present in everyone's heart, etc. But Vyasadeva not sufficiently emphasized the most essential purpose of all the Vedic literatures. Vedaishya, what's that called? In the 15th chapter, text 15, Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto mataksmiti jnano pavanam cha. What's the next line? Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. That by all the Vedas, Krishna says, I am to be known. He's the compiler of the Vedas and the knower of the Veda. So the purpose of the Veda is to know Krishna. That's the highest. Of course, Krishna is known in different features, you could say, but the most, it's just like a person may have different features. You may know him as an Aussie, you may know him as a man, you may know him as a businessman, you may know him as a, whatever, something or another, sportsman or something. But that's something, but it's not the complete, to know his actual character, to know him personally, is something more intimate. So that hadn't been sufficiently emphasized, the personal aspect of God, his most intimate, and the fact that we can all, enter into that most intimate relationship with the Godhead, had been not emphasized, mentioned, of course, in the Puranas and in Mahabharata also, and very, very distantly in the Vedic scriptures, the Upanishads, a little tiny bit. But basically speaking, not emphasized, just one of many different subject matters being discussed. So Narada Muni impressed upon Vyasadeva the importance to emphasize it. Otherwise people will get, especially in Kali Yuga, don't have the brain substance to understand the conclusion of the Vedas very easily, even though in the Vedanta Sutra and so many other texts he'd written, they have not got the brain substance to come to understand even the basics, what to speak at the conclusion, practically speaking. So make it very clear, he said, what is the actual conclusion of the whole Vedas, the whole, in other words, the actual completion or fulfillment of the living entity's aspiration for whatever their aspirations are, ultimately for liberation, what it really means. What it really means. So that's the text of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was already there. The Bhagavad Purana was already there amongst the 18 Puranas, but it was just one. It wasn't like clearly emphasized, and it was only in abbreviated form. So in a more extended form, Srila Vyasadeva compiled this Srimad Bhagavatam. But the actual compilation is more or less a recording of this particular conversation in the forest of Naimishranya, between the sages of Naimishranya, headed by Shanak Rishi, and Sutta Goswami, who had heard the Bhagavatam being spoken by Shukadeva Goswami on the bank of the Ganga, when he was speaking it to Parikshit Maharaj. Many sages were there also to hear this great message, this which really is the, people sometimes wonder, what is the, what should we be doing at the time of death? I don't think many people wonder much about that now, but intelligent people wonder what is the purpose of life and what should we be thinking of at the time of death. So this is at the end of this first canto, which is more or less an introduction. Actually, Shukadeva Goswami is not exactly on the picture in the first canto. It's kind of like an introduction by Sutta Goswami. And then Sukadeva Goswami comes on the scene, and Parikshit Maharaj asks him that question, the last few verses of the first canto. But from the second canto on, it's the answers of Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj's question. And here we see the sages are now beginning to address Sutta Goswami, son of Maharshan. So the sages say, Vishaya uchu They didn't say that. That's just saying they said. Tvaya kulu puranani setihasani chanaga akhyatani apyaditani dharma shastrani anayuta Vishayo uchu tvaya kulu paranani setihasani chanaga akhyatanyapyaditani dharma shastrani anyata Vishaya uchu tvaya kulu puranani setihasani chanaga akyatanyapyadhitani dharma shastrani anyutta Vishuchuhu Tvaya kalu puranani setihasani chanaga akyatanyapyaditani dharma shastrani anyata Vishaya uchu tvaya kalu puranani setihasani chanaga akyatanyapyaditani dharma shastrani anyuta Vishaya uchu Tvaya kalu puranani setihasani kanaga akyatanyapyaditani dharma shastrani yanayuta. Ladies, Vishaya uchuhu Tvaya kulu puranani setihasani chanaga akyatanyapyaditani dharma shastrani anyuta Vishaya uchuhu Tvaya kulu puranani setihasani chanaga akyatanyapyaditani dharma shastrani anyuta Vishaya. The sages uchahu said Tvaya by you, kalu undoubtedly, Puranani, the supplements to the Vedas, with illustrative narrations, Sa itihasani, along with the histories, Cha, and Anaga, freed from all vices, Akyatani, explained, Api, although, Aditani, well read, Dharma Shastrani, scriptures giving right directions to progressive life. Yani, all these, Uta said. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The sages said, respected Sutta Goswami, You are completely free from all vice. You are well versed in all the scriptures famous for religious life, and in the Puranas and the histories as well. For you have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them. So we read some of this purport. I'll read it again because it's very short. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Goswami, or the bona fide representative of Sri Vyasadeva, must be free from all kinds of vices. The four major vices of Kali Yuga are illicit connection with women, animal slaughter, intoxication, speculative gambling of all sorts. Just as a little interesting, when Srila Prabhupada was in England, was way back, maybe, I don't know, 1969 maybe, and he was being interviewed, and then they interviewed one little, maybe it was 1970, but they interviewed, or thereabouts, he interviewed one little girl who was the daughter of Shamsundar and Malati. Her name was Saraswati, television. And they interviewed her, and they asked her, something about Krishna consciousness. And she said, she was saying how we follow we have four restrictions, four activities like that. And they said, well, what are they? She's little girl. She said, we have no illicit connection with women. And every little girl, so everybody laughed. She didn't know. It doesn't mean that. It means any kind of illicit sexual activity. In the case here, it says with women. But it really means illicit sex life. Animal slaughter, intoxication, speculative gambling of all sorts. A Goswami must be free from all these vices before he can dare sit on the Vyasasan. No one should be allowed to sit on the Vyasasan who is not spotless in character and who is not freed from the above-mentioned vices. He not only should be freed from all such vices, but must also be well versed in all revealed scriptures or in the Vedas. The Puranas are also parts of the Vedas, and histories like the Mahabharata and Ramayana are also parts of the Vedas. The Acharya or Goswami must be well acquainted with all these literatures. So we kind of talked a little bit about this section of the purport yesterday, and then Prabhupada goes on to say, to hear and explain them is more important than reading them. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. Hearing is called Shravana, and explaining is called Kirtan. The two processes of Shravana and Kirtan are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. So this is the secret of understanding these various teachings, which ultimately, of course, are not just there for the sake of adjusting the society or bringing us to a better state of living, but to help guide us on the path to perfection, the path to self-realization, God-realization. So that process of hearing from the right source is the key. So they've chosen Sutta Goswami because they see that he's freed of all vice. To hear from somebody who doesn't understand the subject matter, has their own interpretation of the subject matter, be it the Bhagavad Gita, any scripture come to that, bHagvatam, one will not understand the essence of the text, one will get the wrong impression, one will not achieve the result that's meant to be achieved. So it's essential we hear in any even in the material sense of the term, we have to hear from somebody who's eligible to speak on the subject. Not some upstart or some, quack, as Prabhupada uses the word, a quack. Because a doctor is a quack. They say he's a quack. Because he has something, but he's not eligible, he's not authorized. So authorization has to be there. There are many factors. One of them is freed from all vice. This is preliminary. How can one speak on transcendental subject matters if one is still absorbed in material subject matters? One has no eligibility to reveal that. It's not just some theory. It has to enter into the heart. It has to change the heart. So we cannot get something if the person doesn't have it. If we want some, money, you have to go to somebody who's got money. And similarly, if we want transcendental realization, we have to hear from somebody who has transcendental realization. So the sages are approaching Sutta. We're hearing from Srila Prabhupada, which we should be, has this transcendental. He's the Vidarshina. He's those who've seen the truth. And if we connect with those such persons, then at least we can get direction in our lives, how we can become purified. So that natural understanding, that natural realization will take place. I'm going to read one verse from the 3rd chapter of this Srimad Bhagavatam, last verse of the 3rd chapter. Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And there's some wonderful verses here, but I'll read the last verse, text 44 of the 3rd chapter. And this is Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages. He's began to answer their questions in brief already, and specifically in the 2nd chapter. But they also asked, please tell us about the various incarnations and about the supreme origin, the fountainhead of all those incarnations. We want to hear this in detail. They wanted to hear all about it, because hearing such subject matters purifies the dust-worn heart of the living entities, or the hearts covered with materialistic contamination from our various associations in this world. So by associating with these topics, hearing it, Nivritar Shirpa Giyamanad Bhavoshri Chota Manobhiramat, this verse keeps coming up over the last few days, and it's interesting to note that at the beginning of Prabhupada's Krishna book, he quotes this verse of Parikshit Maharaj from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 10th canto, chapter 1, I think text 4 or something like that. He quotes this verse, and it basically means we have to hear the subject matter of Krishna Katha, Kutama Shloku Gunana Vadat. The subjects of dealing with the beautiful pastimes and of course the teachings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we have to hear from the right source, not just from anybody or somebody who doesn't even accept Krishna for what he is. And somebody has their own interpretation. We have to hear from the right source. And that's that Nivritta Krishna. It's the same principle, one who is freed of all vice, one who has no material motivation whatsoever. Their only motivation is to glorify the personality of Godhead with choice poetry. In the sense, this is Srimad Bhagavatam, which is poetic. So the sages want to hear this subject matter, so we have to hear it from the Nivritta Krishna. And that way it purifies the mind, cleanses our consciousness, and acts like a medicine. Oshiti is medicine for those in this world, in this material world, struggling in the world of birth and death, which is basically every conditioned soul. Bhava Rog. So the cleanses, purified Bhavoshri Chota Manobi Ramat. And we have to hear it. Hear it from the right source, the right subject matter, then it purifies our consciousness. And naturally, as the consciousness becomes purified, then one can see properly. So this verse is very nice. Text 44. O learned Brahmins, when Shukadeva Goswami recited the Bhagavatam, it's called Kirtan, in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him, which is hearing, Shravanam, he heard him with rapt attention. Rapt attention means, what does it mean? Pardon? Carefully, attentively, yeah. Fully, yeah? Completely absorbed in. Fully. You're wrapped in something, you're completely absorbed in it. I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it. In the realization we were reading last night from the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, that One who dedicates themselves to this knowledge attains this knowledge in due course of time. Now that can be understood, you could say, perhaps in different angles, but one of the angles is that when we dedicate ourselves to these instructions or to this science of devotional service, then one becomes eligible to realize it. It's not just a question of knowing it, a question of mechanically executing it, but the realization. There has to be realization. That's the fruit. So that's the process, by dedicating ourselves. So he heard very carefully, now I should try to make you hear the very same thing, as I learned it from him, and I have realized it. Because he heard, as we were hearing also yesterday, with great attention, submissiveness, and in a service attitude. Submissive hearing, and with, a humble attitude, not a challenging attitude. There may be doubts, but they should be presented for clarification, not to challenge. Of course, in the first stages of devotional life, sometimes that challenging attitude is there. It's sometimes there. Or the first stages of spiritual life, maybe not devotional life, but spiritual life. But ultimately, if we really want to understand the text, submissive hearing from the right source is the key. Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport to this verse, one can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Sri Krishna in the pages of the Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized great soul like Shukadeva Goswami. One cannot, however, learn the Bhagavatam from a bogus, hired reciter whose aim of life is to earn some money out of such recitation and employ the earning in sex indulgence, because he's not Nivritta Trishna, he's not free of this material motive, and thus one will be affected by hearing from him. Said that milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effects. Similarly, one who hears this Bhagavatam from one who is not actually rightly situated, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, it will not have the effect, it will have a misleading effect. Even Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains to Arjuna at the end, this Bhagavad Gita cannot be explained to one who is envious, one who is not my devotee, one who is not engaged in devotional service. Because they will not be able to understand it. We will get the wrong impression. We will be seeing it through our own, our own conception, through our own conditioning. We'll be understanding it through our own conditioning, unless we will not be seeing it from the transcendental plane. We will not get that vision. It will be a blurred vision. No one can learn Srimad Bhagavatam. One cannot, however, learn Bhagavatam from a bogus hired reciter whose aim of life is to earn some money out of such recitation and employ the earning in sex indulgence or some kind of material pleasure. No one can learn Srimad Bhagavatam who is associated with persons engaged in sex life. That is the secret of learning Bhagavatam. No one, nor can one learn Bhagavatam from one who interprets the text by his mundane scholarship. Many times scholars, they try to challenge the devotee's understanding of these texts from their mundane perspective. But material, even Krishna says, he cannot be understood by studying the scriptures and so on and so forth. He can only be understood through devotional service. So such persons cannot see the essential, let's say, subject matter. They can only see it from a theoretical point of view, or a scholastic point of view, and not from the actual essential purpose. Just knowing the theory about somebody is not the same. One has to know them by personal association. One has to learn Bhagavatam from the representative of Shukadeva Goswami and no one else. In other words, they have to be in a bona fide parampara, as Krishna explains in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, evam parampara praptam imam rajasho vidudam. One has to hear this Bhagavad Gita, or this knowledge, let's say, of the Gita. One has to hear this in a line of disciplic succession. Originally all knowledge comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he reveals that knowledge, or speaks that knowledge to his confidential servitor. That's why he said, now I am speaking to you, Arjuna, because you are my devotee as well as my friend. Hare Krishna. Make sure you get some prasadam. Can someone give him prasadam? If he's leaving, that is. Please give him prasadam. Shukadeva Goswami. One has to hear from either Shukadeva Goswami or his representative, and no one else. This is the process, and there is no alternative. There is no alternative. We have to hear from such persons. Sutta Goswami is a bona fide representative of Shukadeva Goswami because he wants to present the message which he received from the great learned Brahmin Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami presented Bhagavatam as he heard it from his great father, and so also Sutta Goswami is presenting Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Shukadeva Goswami. Simple, so that's the process. We have to hear from the right person the message of Bhagavatam. And it's passed down, unbroken. Prabhupada said this. He said, well, we were listening to a conversation the other day, and I can't remember who was talking to somebody, but Prabhupada said, my happiness is that I have not changed the message which I have received from my spiritual master. That is my happiness. Not that he's made up a new interpretation and now I'm famous because of my interpretation. No. He said, my happiness is that I haven't changed anything. I have no credit. That's my only credit, that I did not change what my spiritual master and the acharyas have given us. The word nivishta, simple hearing, Prabhupada says, is not all. One must realize the text. Simple hearing is not all. One must realize the text by or with. How do we realize the text? One must realize. Did we get some prasadam? We gave him some prasad? Good. One must realize the text with? With what? Yes, very good. And you have even got the book in front of you, nor a mobile. Well done. Must realize the text with proper attention. In this case, rapt attention. Proper attention. The word nivishta means that Sutta Goswami drank the juice of the Bhagavatam through his ears. That's a kind of, what would you call that? It's like, you don't literally drink through your ears. So is it a metaphor? What's the word? How do you describe that? It kind of like, just like you drink the juice of a fruit. The essence of the fruit is, what is the essence of the fruit? The juice, the rasa. Rasa is the taste, the mellow, sweet taste within the fruit. I mean, if there's no taste, you don't feel like eating it if there's no sweet taste, right? Somebody gives you a mango, and it's dry as a bone. There's no juice at all. It's just dry and tasteless, practically. It's just nothing there. You think, what is this? I don't want that. It's not a mango. It's not a mango. What's this? Well, it looks like it's called a mango, but it's not. The juice is the essence of it. It was an apple or an orange. Sometimes you get oranges. There's no real taste in them. They're dry. There's nothing there. It's the juice. In everything, it's the juice. We're looking for the rasa. It's the same in a person. We're looking for the juice. Give us the juice, the taste. You want to taste some. So it's like that also. So the taste, one won't get the taste simply by dry hearing. There's no taste. Taste comes by this hearing from the right source attentively, hearing in the proper way. Then that effect is there. And this type juice is drunk through the ears. Through the ears. In other words, we have to open our ears and try to be attentive. Try to be attentive. That is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person, and then he can at once realize the presence of Lord Krishna in every page. Not an artificial imposition, but an actual revelation. Wouldn't that be nice? Pratyaksha-vagamam dharmyam susukam kartam avyayam. This Raja Vijay Rajaguyam Pavitramidam Uttamam. Pratyaksha-vagamam dharmyam. It's This confidential, Rajaguyam, this knowledge, realization of this knowledge, so it's most confidential knowledge. You can say, well, what do you mean confidential? Anyone can read it. The confidential aspect is you have to realize it. It's the realization of what's there. We can all read the book, but we need help to see to see what's there. Looking at somebody, we're missing the point. Sometimes you look at, they have some kind of, I don't know what they call, but some kind of games. You have to see, it looks, you can see it this way, you can see it that way, you can see the same thing. It looks like it can look like, in many different ways you can see it, depending on how we look at it. So in the case of Bhagavatam, it's also people look at it in different ways according to their condition. So we need to see it properly, fine-tuning. We have to hear from somebody who can see it properly. The eligibility or the qualifications are given here. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person. Then we can see Krishna on every page. The secret of knowing Bhagavatam is mentioned here. No one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. But somehow or another, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person, at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of the Bhagavatam. That's quite an amazing purport by Srila Prabhupada, but it kind of emphasizes the whole essence of hearing and chanting. The subject of hearing and chanting is practically, you could say, the basic subject matter of our Krishna consciousness movement. But in a nutshell, we have to hear in the right way from the right person. And so that's basically the essence of this. And that's what we're trying to follow, that principle in our Krishna consciousness. We're hearing in the proper process. We should hear in the proper process, the process of hearing, which Krishna has also given, as we mentioned just now in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. One has to hear submissively, with a service attitude, inquiring, to clear up any obstacles or doubts on our understanding. And from that person who has already been mentioned here, freed of all vice, who's in disciplinate succession, etc., and has realized the text himself, has that understanding to deliver to us. So we have to hear like that. So in practical terms, it also applies to our hearing the subject matter. When we hear the holy name, when we hear the Bhagavatam, whatever it is, we're fortunate to be able to hear from the right source. We've received the Mahamantra from the right source. And if we try to hear it attentively, then the realization will come. The realization may not be seeing Krishna directly, in a sense, but gradual realization of our, attachment to obstacles on the path, for instance, is a realization. To realize I'm such a fool, such a rascal, or whatever it may be. Not just to say it, lip service, but it's having some realization of how proud I am, or whatever it may be. This is all part of realization. Maybe you can say it seems to be on the relative plane, but it is part of the effect of hearing the Mahamantra, that we start to let go of the various attachments, the anarthas around our heart, which are clouding our consciousness, keeping us from seeing Krishna as the holy name or on the pages of Bhagavatam, etc. I think this is a very nice subject. Please try to dwell on it. How we can hear with rapt attention from the right source, because this is the method of realization. Because naturally, if we hear from rapt attention, we're going to put it into practice also. We also have to put it into practice. Any questions or comments? Sachinanda Prabhu.
Sometimes we see, sometimes invited to a program, not this one program, but we see people that's not this, talking about Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and we know that they're not pure, right? Saying. So what's our position there? Should we listen to it, or should we leave the assembly? Is it
During Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, there are a few examples of that. Even the Srivas Thakur was listening to Devananda Pandit reciting Bhagavatam. Srivas Pandit, of course, Devananda Pandit didn't have a perfect understanding of the text. And Srivas Pandit was hearing from him because he heard Bhagavatam recital, so he was, wherever there was Bhagavad recital, he was interested. But he was not affected, because Srivas Pandit is transcendental, and he was just feeling Krishna's presence. One who is not so advanced gets affected, because somebody who has not heard from the right source, or is misrepresenting the right source, and if we hear from them submissively, even if we don't, with any kind of hearing, can create doubts in our hearts, or the wrong understanding. And it may gradually start to cloud our consciousness. Another example, it was a Mukunda, one of the Mukundas, who happened to be hearing Bhagavat recital or philosophy, not even Bhagavatam, philosophy from persons who are not even Vaishnavas, they were impersonalists. And the reason it was a family commitment. It was a little awkward. You know, sometimes in family association, where this is just inevitable sometimes in family situations, that their social commitments are part of it. So one's expected, because of family commitments, family, whatever, to be a part of that. Just like a devotee goes home sometimes for Christmas, if they're living in a temple, the parents expect you to be a part of the party, right? Why? You're ruining our party. You're not drinking, you're not smoking, you're not eating meat, you don't want to gamble with us, you don't want to kiss the girls. What type of, what is this? When you come home, this is a party, you have to join us, it's Christmas. Or you can say, well, I thought, Mum, that Christmas meant worshipping Jesus Christ. No, it means to enjoy with the family and friends, right? So they may think like that. What do you do? It is a bit of a challenge sometimes, not to be affected. Whenever possible, we avoid exposure to these situations. And Prabhupada would sometimes sit through these things just chanting Hare Krishna all the time. Sometimes he also had, some mela or something, Prabhupada with one of several speakers, and they're talking all kinds of impersonal stuff. And Prabhupada would sit there chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. He would usually request to speak first, so then he would leave as soon as he spoke. Kind of gives a message, you could say a bit impolite, but he was teaching also that we hear from the lips of one who's, especially impersonalism, which often comes into the recitals. Most of the speakers have an impersonalistic understanding, and we should be very careful. You take advice from your mentors as to whether attend or not is the right thing to do. In general, no. But sometimes, I remember we went to a Chinmoy program in London one time, back in the early 70s. Don't ask me why, I was just asked to go along. But then I found out why we went along. We were asked to distribute books. So we distribute books to them, or we even gave a book to him, Chinmoy. And Chinmayananda, whatever his name is. He took a book. He wasn't speaking, he didn't speak, he was doing some monovrata. But he took a book. And his secretary gave a donation, as well, I remember. So the idea was we were going there not to hear, but to give Krishna consciousness. So if you can do that, that's how it works. We don't associate. We have to associate with all sorts of persons. And everyone's affected by Mayavad or some type of, whatever, some type of philosophy of some kind. We're going to have to we can't ignore the association in our family life also. It's there. But our intention is not to, absorb their association, but rather give them Krishna's association, give them the pure association. So that should be the intention, to try to somehow or another give others this opportunity to hear from the right source. So that's our intention, that's another thing. But in general, we don't, unless we're really going there on a purposeful mission, we don't expose ourselves to such a risk. It's like you don't go into a brothel or a pub, just because someone asks you to go in there. Unless you have a mission, you're going in there to preach. Maybe some exceptional cases there may be there. Lord Nityananda may go into a pub to preach. We also sometimes go into a public house to preach. But you've got to be careful you don't get affected. That's the main thing. It is risky. Hearing from persons who are not authorized, they're just whatever. You have to find out their credentials, etc. It's very easy done. I know many devotees, even in Malaysia, they went to this. There's one, I won't mention the name, but there's one guru, she's very well known, goes all over the world, friendly lady, hugs everybody. You may have heard of her. She hugs everyone. And you get, apparently you get some kind of a zap, some kind. And many devotees were going in Malaysia. And they were coming back, oh, so nice. So wonderful ladies, devotees, praising Krishna. And said, we got these magazines, showed me the magazine. First page I opened, very first page was actually, we're all God. That was the first line I read. We're all God. The perfection is to merge into the absolute. That was the only line I read. I thought, just close it. I said, how foolish can we be? How foolish. So you have to be careful. We get affected by these things. We get affected by everything. So better we be affected by the pure message. Anything else? Yes. Yes. What's your name? Oh, no. What? Yeah. What's your name? Yeah. Bhava Vibhushna. Baladev Vidyabhushan. Bhava Vibhushan. Very nice.
What does Prabhupada mean when he says that if we hear the definition, we can see Krishna in person in the pages of the Bhagavatam?
That's what he means. You'll see him in person. We have to read with rapt attention and find out. You'll just be experiencing his presence at every moment. Every word. It's like when you wrap the attention. If you have, say you have, because you're a brahmachari, you may not experience that, but a boy who's in love, or a girl in love with a boy, in everything she feels his presence, or her presence. He's completely absorbed. Completely absorbed. Or a mother sees and some mothers are here, when they see the napkins of the baby or the sock of the baby, they immediately become absorbed in their baby. Completely. They feel their baby's presence right with them all, fully. So that's one side of it. One completely feels every moment Krishna there, right with you. Every moment. It's not we're trying to he's there. He's with us. I realize that he's with us. And every word just reminds us of Krishna. Every word. His Bhagavatam is nothing but the literary form of the personality of Godhead. So we realize that personality when we hear it properly. Nice. My understanding, for all it's worth. It's not like you're going to see Krishna, kind of like, instead of the words, you're going to see Krishna on each page, because it's not that Bhagavatam is written like a page, you know what I mean? There we go, in each page of the Bhagavatam, impersonal Brahmajyoti on that one. See it? It's not like, this is, in other words, it means one completely feels Krishna's presence throughout the whole Bhagavatam. There's nothing else. Everything is pointing. It's like Lord Chaitanya, after he took initiation from Ishwara Puri. What was he doing? He was Every word, he previously had a tall, he had a school pandit, he was a learned pandit, he had his students, he was teaching them logic and nyaya and grammar and this and that. And now every word is Krishna. He explains it to mean Krishna. Everything was Krishna. Back to your point, I just forgot to mention when Mukunda, of course, when Lord Chaitanya heard about that, then he said, tell that rascal never to come to see me again if he's hearing from these other, impure sources. What is this nonsense? He comes here and makes out he's a devotee. He goes and hears from the impersonalists, like this. Some people are like that. Some gurus are like that. They speak Mayavad philosophy when there were some people, and they speak so-called Vaishnavism when there were people who believe in God. And then, they pat everyone on that, and then they go off and speak some other philosophy elsewhere. And this is nonsense. You could say what Prabhupada's mentioning here, bogus. So anyway, that's one thing. And Lord Chaitanya banished him. And when he asked, is it ever possible I can ever get the Lord's association again? And Lord said, tell him in 10 million births you will be eligible again. 10 million births for hearing such subject matter. 10 million births. And he became ecstatic. He thought, my Lord is so kind. Again, I'll be with him after 10 million births. How kind he is. Just imagine how we would think, oh my God. But then immediately the Lord called him, bring him here right now. Because it was a lesson he was teaching through. Mukunda, he was teaching him a lesson. Mukunda was never, he wasn't impersonalistic. He was one of his brothers or some relatives or something, it was some social commitment, and he didn't really want to hear it. It's like Gadadhar Pandit did not really want to hear Ballava Bhatt's commentary on the Bhagavatam, because he also had a slightly different misunderstanding like that. Sometimes that's there, And the Lord teaches through various devotees. He taught through Haridas Thakur when he heard blasphemy in the court of the Qazi, or the Nawab's court. And he said that because of hearing blasphemy, that's why I was punished. Devotees shouldn't hear blasphemy. We shouldn't hear impersonal philosophy. Lord Chaitanya said, one who hears this impersonal philosophy spiritually will be ruined. If they're on the Vaishnava path, ruined. You have to hear Bhagavatam from the right person. This was Lord Chaitanya's instruction through Swarup Damodar, that one must hear Srimad Bhagavatam from the right person. It's the most important thing. And receive the Mahamantra through the right source too. Otherwise the holy name is not a thing that has to reciprocate. It's Krishna himself. And he chooses. So if we hear from the right person in the right way, then that's how Krishna can still do what he likes, but that's how Krishna reciprocates. He's not obligated. He's not, not like a medical medicine inside a capsule or something. He's the person. He chooses. He has free will. I wanted to finish off by reading a little bit from the. Have we got a songbook here? Can you bring it, please, quickly? In Prabhupada's prayers, Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma. I want to just quick as you can, please. Is it if it's in the temple room? Some of the verses from Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma, the mood of a pure devotee of the Lord. Thank you. Oh, is it in there? Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma's in this one? I hope so. Is it in alphabet? How does it work? Yes, 31. Okay. This is Prabhupada's prayer. It's really, meditative prayer. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. I guess you have some business here, otherwise why would you bring me to this terrible place? Most of the people here are covered by material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied. Therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible, because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service, O Lord? I am simply praying for your mercy, so that I will be able to convince them about your message. All living entities have become under the control of the illusory energy by your will. Because everything's under Krishna's control. You can't even come into this world without his will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. Without the will of the Lord, no one can get out of this material illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. So the wish of the devotee is so important. Please kindly have mercy and deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. So Prabhupada wills, he's begging Krishna, please desire their deliverance. Then only they will be able, this is the key, understand your message. Only then they will be able to understand your message. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation. And if a sober person repeatedly receives them with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. Same point being mentioned. And he quotes the verses in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. It said, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desires for material enjoyment accumulated in the core of the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. In the previous verse, Sutta Goswami says, we develop the urge to hear by rendering service to those who are freed of all vice. By such service one develops an affinity to hear, or an attraction to hear the messages of Bhagavatam. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. He gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Scientific. It's also mentioned in the 2nd canto, a 2nd chapter there. Chatidana Manayo, I can't remember. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. That can apply to the Supreme Lord, also the self in terms of the jiva. In other words, that we're not this body. We're meant to be controlling our mind and body, not controlled by it. They will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I am very unqualified, unfortunate, and most fallen. Therefore I am seeking your benediction so I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or another, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or a failure, as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I'm sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. Oh, there's a few more verses, but we'll leave it at that. This is the mood of a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to speak that message in a way which will actually penetrate people's hearts, change their hearts. Please give me your mercy so that they can understand this message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We don't feel we're qualified, but praying for the Lord, please be merciful so they may understand. Because the understanding of Bhagavatam, everything becomes clear. Everything becomes clear. By hearing from the right source in the right way, understanding in that way, everything becomes clear. The heart becomes cleansed of the effects of lust, greed, anger, and all these unfortunate enemies. They're described as enemies of the soul, or enemies of the mind, which can overwhelm us and contaminate our consciousness or our understanding of the truth, etc. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. And there's Narada Muni ki jai. There he is. He's coming to wake us all up. Imagine us, if Vyasadeva was in that situation, imagine our situation. Hare Krishna. Upside down high five. Hare Krishna.